We would like to thank the Deputy Minister for his address. Dear ladies and gentlemen and friends of the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce, it's a great pleasure for me to be here in Thessaloniki again within such a short time. And I'm particularly pleased to see that Thessaloniki, a city that I dearly love and which I originate from, is actually changing greatly and acquiring the significance that it deserves, with important infrastructure highlighting its potential and its capacity to play a leading role in future developments, not only on a domestic level and from a financial perspective, but also, and even more importantly, with regard to international development, since it is a dynamically growing hub for the whole of Southeast Europe. Of course, this does not only mean that its geostrategic position is significant, but also the fact that there is a very important human and business capital in the city as well. This is the greatest ambassador, we could say, and a human capital with which our Chamber of Commerce is continuously in dialogue with. I would like to welcome Mr. Staikouras, Minister of Infrastructure and Transport. Thank you very much for always supporting our events, as the President mentioned. And I would also like to thank for her presence Mrs. Lucia Sarandi, President of the Federation of Industries of Greece, and of the timber company Akritas, which employs 250 people in the region of Evros. Our discussion shall be focusing on the opportunities that the broader region of northern Greece is currently facing, Eastern Macedonia and Thrace and Thessaloniki specifically, so that they can pave the way for economic and developmental changes and growth. Dear Minister, right now, flagship projects are in progress in Thessaloniki, some of which will be completed very soon, after 4 decades, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm talking about the Thessaloniki Metro, but there are other projects in progress as well. Could you please present them to us within the framework of the dynamic impetus that they're going to be offering the city with regard to its development? Well, first, I would like to also thank the Chamber of Commerce and verify that we have developed a very strong relationship in recent years. We have become friends, actually. And I'd like to be very specific with regard to what Thessaloniki can look forward to on a realistic basis, because I think what is often missing in Greece is this sense of realism. For decades, we put forward projects which very often do not have the relevant financial backing, thus leading to expectations that cannot be realized. Right now in Thessaloniki, however, we have public and private projects in place, and we have with us important people and companies. Recently, actually, we had the opportunity to meet with them very close to where we are today, and I see a representative such as Demand here today as well. Let's look at the public projects, and I looked at your map briefly. Thessaloniki has an exceptional airport, which didn't exist a few years back. So this means that the government of New Democracy at the time made the decision to concede 14 airports, including of Thessaloniki, to Fraport. And the Thessaloniki's airport is the only one of these 14 airports where interventions have been made above and beyond what is already in progress in the other 13 airports due to the Recovery and Resilience Fund. 150 million worth of interventions are taking place in the other airports, which have already been completed in Thessaloniki. Secondly, we have the Thessaloniki Metro. I'm not going to talk about the past. I'm simply going to say that very many people for decades have tried to implement this project. The only comment I'd like to make is that delays in public projects are very costly. And this metro and its extension to Calamaria and the unexpected events and archaeological issues will cost about 3 billion euros. And this is the result of the great delays of many decades. But indeed, next Saturday, we will be handing over to society on the same day all stations, because there has been suspicion, reasonable suspicion in Thessaloniki, which has been raising questions regarding to this. But from Saturday afternoon, the main line with 13 stations will be handed over to the people of Thessaloniki. And by the end of 2025, we will also have delivered the 5 additional stations, which have to do with the extension to Kalamaria. Although there are also 3 stops after Kalamaria up to Mikra. 18 stations in about 1.5 years, I believe, is a good political initiative and action taking place after decades of efforts. The handing over of the metro, of course, is framed by the necessary up-to-date security systems confirmed by SPV company, which has undertaken the maintenance and the operation of the metro in Thessaloniki, similarly to Milan, Copenhagen, and other areas. And also, in the public presence of the Prime Minister, we have also unfolded our future policies for the extensions of metro to Harilao and Tumba area and to the west, obviously. But what this means that we need to find the necessary financing tools in the future. So we're going to be talking about the extensions after we find the necessary financing tools required. In addition to the metro, we have another flagship project that I really believe in, and we are talking with the local authorities and the business communities of Thessaloniki about the peri-urban railway of Thessaloniki. We have secured financing through ESPA. We have talked with the university with regard to how we can strengthen the accessibility of students through this friendly means of transport. And I think that in the next, or I believe that in the next programming period, we'll be ready to put it into practice. Now, what about the flyover? Well, as I heard from Kostas, very rightly so, the flyover had reached a point where very soon the situation in Thessaloniki would have been unbearable due to congestion. Out of 5,000 passages of cars an hour, we would be moving on to 10,000. Of course, I know this suspicion that people in Thessaloniki are quite skeptical about these projects because of the delay of the metro, and also with regard to how this would affect the daily movement of citizens. Well, I think that the way in which the project is progressing right now has put people's minds at ease and has shown that indeed by 2027 this project will be completed. Now, with regard to the expected disruption that this has caused to people's movement, the whole of the government and the local authorities are doing their utmost so that we can limit the existing and impossible to overcome impact on people's daily lives. Egnatia Odos. Egnatia Odos is a very good example and is a project that we constructed but requires maintenance. And this is an opportunity in Greece as well to talk not only about the implementation of new projects, but also about the maintenance of existing projects, particularly with regard to climate change and its impact. I believe that in the first 3 months of 2025, we will have completed the process of concession of Egnatia Odos from Egnatia Odos SA to the contracting company, so that we have 1 billion maintenance works on this road axis, which is extremely important but requires maintenance. And this extensive maintenance and the necessity of this maintenance are well established. I think that we have put aside in public dialogue, unfortunately, other means of transport, such as buses. In Thessaloniki, there has been a major change with regard to the past in this direction. Today, I had the opportunity to go to the Stavroupoli station, and we have indeed renovated 50% of the fleet of the Thessaloniki urban transport system. 50% are new buses. Today, we have another 15 new ones from a leasing a process of 150 new buses, 41 of which will be new. Today we have the 15 first ones. So we have a much better fleet being used by the for means of transport in Thessaloniki. We have the metro, we are going to have the flyover and the peri-urban railway in Thessaloniki, and I believe that by 2027 this will mean that all these infrastructures will be in place and the overall image of the city, of the living of citizens in Thessaloniki will be much improved to date. Thank you very much. Before I give the floor to Mrs. Sarandi, could you tell us a few words about the ports and the railways? Because this is also an issue of great interest and importance for Mrs. Sarandi. Yes, that's always the first question she asks me, and very rightly so. From a strategic perspective, what the city has to do is to connect its ports to the railway so that we can export products to Europe first and foremost. I'd like to remind you and repeat that in recent journeys where I had the opportunity to accompany the Prime Minister to Serbia and Bulgaria, there was great interest from both governments with regard to further valorizing the ports of Thessaloniki and Alexandroupoli. This requires investments, of course. Financing resources are not endless. We need to find the financing tools to do so. And very recently, this year actually, the most recent decision was made in July 2024, and we were able to draw significant resources in order to achieve this upgraded connection between ports and the railway system. So, to be more specific, we have, in any case, secured financing for the connection of the sixth pier with the peri-urban railway and the railway system in general. The upgrading of the railway system between Thessaloniki and Idomeni border, which is very important indeed, because in this way we aim to participate in one of the two European corridors covering the Eastern Mediterranean and the Western Balkans. This is the route to Skopje, Belgrade, and Budapest. We have also secured funding, and the tender has taken place for the connection between Toxotes and Carvalli, that is the port of Kavala, to the railway system. We have secured financing in July 24 for an upgrading of the connection between Thessaloniki and Promachonas and the railway for this, and part of the Alexandroupoli Ormenio, Pythio Ormenio right now to be specific, has also been secured financially. We're talking about 1 billion euros total cost. Our hope is, and that's what we're working towards, so that in the new proposal put forward with regard to the available quota for Greece, because we do not have access to limitless resources. So in January 2025, we want to put forward a new proposal that is going to complement the Alexandroupoli-Ormenio railway access, and if possible, we will upgrade the current but non-functioning as it should railway connection between Thessaloniki and Alexandroupoli. Thank you very much. Mrs. Sarandi.
So, you also represent Besides being a businesswoman, you also represent a body that is located outside Thessaloniki, an association of businesses. So you do have the knowledge required. What is your view about the current situation? I would like to start by thanking the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce for their invitation. I'm happy to be here together with Minister Staikouras, of course. So I will start in a rather more holistic manner. What do I mean by this? I would like to comment upon the title of this event, Urban Resilience for Future Ready Cities, which is about designing things about the future and anticipating developments. The first time that we started speaking about resilience and of course, together with Yannis Boutaris, who passed away recently, the former mayor of Thessaloniki. Speaking with Yannis Boutaris, we raised the issue of urban resilience back then, and together with the mayor of Athens, we worked upon a study together with Deloitte and the Rockefeller Institute. A study that was about basically about everything that um, spoke about things such as flooding phenomena, even pandemics, but the basis of this study was urban resilience and urban development in any case. So I think that this study should be used because it provides a basis towards the future. And for example, industry is always related with such developments. Industrial premises located in the periphery of cities should be considered in this context, and the development that should come always goes through industrial businesses as well. Of course, Yannis Boutaris, who was also a vice president of the Federation of Industries of Greece, and he had indeed that vision of seeing municipal authorities becoming really autonomous. For example, he provided an example from the city of Vienna that was also able to fund the state itself, the Austrian state itself. So, speaking about Vienna and Austria, and in relation to railway networks, there was indeed another study that showed that Austria was recently one of the three main countries that invested heavily in the development of rail networks as opposed to the development of road networks. That was not, of course, the case in Greece. We invested much more in the road network. But if one considers the great impacts that these had in Austria and what could have happened in Greece since then, one understands that decentralization can somehow become a reality. Exports from Thessaloniki towards the rest of the world cannot be strengthened without ports and a solid railway network working together. And through the development of rail networks, also some satellite cities can be further strengthened. And if you don't have this solid rail network, such cities can actually be left behind. We do have a great port here in Thessaloniki, but since it is a getaway port, It relates to countries, to other countries of the European Union. Basically, what we are doing here is that we have to try much more in order to connect this port with the railway network. There are also other ports in this area, such as those in Thrace and Epirus, that are practically in existence in terms of cargo capacities. Absolutely no development and growth in terms of these other ports. You cannot have raw materials, for example, arriving in those ports and having absolutely no infrastructure there to handle um, that cargo. Of course, it is a great thing for us to see Mr. Gigi Kostas becoming a European Commissioner for Transport. Pan-European rail networks are, of course, there. More investment needs to be made in this area always. So Greece, hopefully at some point, could acquire the rail network that it needs. So things seem to change. Relationships between North and South are changing. With no rail network, Greece will be definitely lagging behind other countries if no true rail network is not made available. Something that is always a good surprise for me when I visit Thessaloniki is all those young people living in the cities and studying in the cities, in the city and studying in the cities, universities. So, the universities are there with high numbers of students. There are also research institutes around the cities, foreign investments in research and development in Thessaloniki. So, how can all these things be further strengthened in order to also help through businesses and manufacturing? Possibly the minister could also contribute in this part of the discussion. Yes, of course. The discussion about universities has been running for several decades, and now we have always been saying that this is our true competitive advantage. We do have a great university community and research centers in and around Thessaloniki. I think that the time has now come to move ahead. Mr. Staikouras mentioned the suburban railway network to be developed, of course. However, the data that we have about our universities are not do not seem to be very positive. We have one of the oldest teaching staffs together with Bulgaria and Italy in Europe. We also have limited resources being made available to universities and research institutes. This should also change. We have raised this issue on several occasions. We need to see more funds being made available to those institutes and universities. We, as a Federation of Industries of Greece, welcome the efforts of the Greek government to bring back experts that will also work across the whole of Greece, not only in Athens, that is, but also across other areas and universities, people that will create specific communities around those universities. And coming back to the issue of industry, research and development are now the spearhead that we need in order to move forward. That is, we need more money, um, more investments in this area, not only invest in tourism, for example. We need to help industry acquire a larger part in terms of the country's GDP, and this will be made possible only if we are able to have access to more funds, funds that will make it possible to better funds the actions undertaken by universities and research institutes. I think that you all agree about this, including Mr. Minister Staikouras, of course. Yes, some thoughts, some brief thoughts on my part. I will agree with what you said, but also raise the issue of constraints and limitations. It is, of course, a normal thing to ask for more money for transport, rail networks, etc. But funds are do have some limitations and constraints, so you need to set some priorities. The continuous discussion is underway on the European level to see how funds can be distributed based on the priorities of every country. One of the priorities in Greece is, of course, transport, but there are quotas based on which you can acquire funds. For example, in this area, by January 25, we can have access to funds of up to 300 or 400 millions for the upcoming period. And there are, of course, the concepts of adaptation and mitigation when we talk about sustainability. We do need funds for the green transition, but we also need funds to face the needs of climate change. In order for you to understand what I'm talking about, let me tell you that there will be tenders in central Greece in the months to come for road and rail networks of around 1.5 billion euros. And this is for the implementation of 8 projects. In order for us to find those resources, we needed to spend around 600 millions from the recovery fund and find also some additional funds that will come from other funding instruments. So all these projects may seem great, but they are faced with specific limitations and constraints on the European level. We do have a good rail network currently that has helped us in recent years to reduce the number of road accidents at least by 50%. Now, the problem of road accident is now basically situated in urban areas and mostly involves motorcycles. We are now changing some of the provisions of the legislation in order to face this problem as well. And now coming back to the issue of universities, I would like to say that we have great universities in our country, with great teaching staff, producing great papers and also excellent students that once they leave Greece and go abroad, they provide always great examples. However, the conditions of teaching are not always ideal, of course, and often lag behind the situation in other universities in Europe. So there are things that we can still do to improve the situation. Also mentioned my previous position And I would like to say that we have introduced initiatives to basically introduce tax incentives in order to bring back some of those experts and scientists that are now living and working abroad. We also try to strengthen the role of several universities, such as the Democritus University in Thrace. Its role is being strengthened. And we also need to do more about creating more infrastructure, for example, for the creation of students' homes through the implementation of public and private projects for accommodation projects, that is, for students. The Prime Minister also mentioned these initiatives recently in Thessaloniki. We also provide incentives in the area of research and innovation. We have showed our interest, of course, for all these in all these areas, and we have thought about how we can help Thessaloniki do more in terms of research and innovation actions. I would like to agree with you, Mrs. Sarandi, that we always need to do more and reach and achieve better results. Thank you very much, Minister. I do believe that your government stands by all necessary, all actors for the implementation of those ideas and initiatives. I would also like to thank Mrs. Sarandi for her participation. Once again, thank you for being with us.